In today's module, we're actually going to be looking at large language models. And in Pacific, we're going to be looking at public versus private generative AI and what are some of our security concerns around this whole concept, this whole community of generative AI and in Pacific large language models, right? So let's first of all start off with large language models. So from the previous course, we understand what large language models are, and we also know what generative AI is, right? So some of the more popular tools that are actually out there is first of all from Google and it's Bard. Okay, so that's one of the more popular chatbot generative AI uh, applications out there. And another very popular application is one from OpenAI, and this one's perhaps more popular, at least in social media right now, and this ChatGPT. And both of these are basically examples that use large language models behind the scenes, right? So they're chatbots that use the LLM concept here, right? Now, one of the key concerns here is that large language models, right, when you're training them, they're actually connected to the internet. And as you're aware that the internet is one big bad place of bad actors out there, right? There's a lot of malicious things out there, just as well as good things. But just remember that the internet has its risks, it has its all those issues and everything else that's surrounded with using the internet. And when you actually have a large language models and that's connected to the internet, obviously that's a risk because now you can bring most of that stuff into your large language models, and you don't really want to do that. And the other thing here is that if you use these public tools such as Bard and ChatGPT, and when they're using these large language models that are connected to the internet, you yourself are actually putting your own personal stuff into these models that it's learning. So, for example, let's say you're a company and you build something proprietary. When you put them into ChatGPT or Bard, you're actually putting that into the public domain, right? And as a result, those large language models from OpenAI and Google is learning off from the input that you're putting into. So, how do we fix these problems and how do we address some of these security concerns here, right? So, the first one is really quite simple, and that is to use an enterprise version of ChatGPT and Bard, right? So, what the enterprise version does, it is not basically fueling the models from a public domain perspective. Like, for example, if you do have a proprietary code and you do want to do some kind of a generative AI around it, if you use the enterprise version, you're not really kind of putting that out in the public domain. It is secure, but to that extent, you really want to be creating your own large language models as opposed to using something that's relatively defined for you. And in addition, the enterprise version does actually have more control. So you can actually isolate it from the internet if you want to, right? Because it's in your domain, it's in your control, right? So really remember, ChatGPT bot, when you're using this, you're really putting your own personal data into that public domain to which it's using your own personal input or added content in order for that to actually use that as part of its model and it's part of its generative AI. So really that's the key concerns here, and you use enterprise version to make it a lot more secure. And that concludes today's short module. Thank you.